Title is Development and Formulation of Biofungicides for the Control of Black Pod Disease of Cocoa. The aims and objective of the project was to develop a cheap, safer, and environmental friendly biopesticides as suitable alternatives to synthetic chemicals for the control of black pod disease caused by Phytophthora nicacaria. The work is ongoing and we have done a pre-trial of the work. We got materials, that is plant parts, which are readily available in the farm, which the farmer can easily access, and we developed it into a fungicide for the control of the disease. And we have done a pre-trial in the nursery and in the laboratory, and they have proven very effective. A metalaxy-M fungicide approved for the use of cocoa was also applied alongside with the developed fungicide, and the data obtained from the study were recorded and subjected to statistical analysis. You can see from the chart, the CTR represents the untreated control. The ACAO, that is the Ash Botanica, the ACB, the Ash Botanica 3, the RF is the synthetic fungicide which is available that the farmer always use for the control of black pod disease on their farm. And the AIA is the Ash Botanica. All these were tested in the laboratory to control black pod disease, and we can see from the chart the blue represents the healthy pods, while the red the blue represents the trails. The red represents healthy pods, while the ash color represents the infected pods. And if we look at this chart, we will see clearly that all the botanicals that were formulated were effective in all the treatments. And that is why we are having these healthy pods. You can see the number of healthy pods in each of the treatments. It shows that this botanica is highly effective in the control of black pod disease. And this chart also represents the black pod incidence from each of the experiments. You can see the control that has no treatment at all. This is the black pod incidence percentage, 27.91%. While our botanicals, this recorded 8.81, 6.39, 5.06, and 13. This is the normal one that farmers do use, the synthetic one. When you look at this treatment, you see that the botanicals are more effective even than the one presently being used by farmers on the field. As partner authorities improve, we will not limit our research to finding alternatives to synthetic fungicides on the field alone. We are also interested in replacing the chemicals farmers found to use, even at storage. And our research, we want to look for an alternative so that right from the field all through to storage, we have safer cocoa beans that will be more acceptable at the international market. And that is the reason why this research came forth. And just like the earlier said, the aim is just to develop botanical pesticide to control two things. Number one is to contamination, to prevent contamination of our fields. We found that there are two major issues that cocoa beans usually encounter. The first is nitrogen contamination. So we work on developing some biopesticides that can help reduce the nitrogen level and also reduce ground deterioration of the soilage. The experiment was carried out on dry fermented cocoa beans and store, and we use ash base, just like it's been earlier explained, for the control of moles, that are suited with cocoa beans as storage. These were stored for 4 months. Some were treated, some were not treated with the botanicals. At the end of the storage, we use filter paper method to try and determine the survival of storage rows associated with the storage to see whether the treatment, the botanical will actually kill those fungi or not. And after that, data were recorded and statistically analyzed. This result shows that the ash botanicals that we used were able to reduce the various minimum the growth of toxin-producing fungi. When toxin-producing fungi are not able to grow, you know that we are rest assured that the level of microtoxin absorption will be reduced to the minimum. So it's an indicator for us that our botanicals were effective against those organisms that produce toxin in cocoa beans as storage.
Climate change has brought about changes in the environment that have resulted into a lot of problems, especially pest and disease infestation. And this has resulted into declining productivity. But how effective and has been integrated IPM technique, that is the integrated pest management technique that has been brought from. How effective is it and what impact does it have on cocoa productivity? So this study aims to assess the overall effectiveness and impact of IPM on cocoa productivity. To see and also to evaluate the adoption, the level of adoption of IPM and estimate the effect of IPM on cocoa. Then material and method. The study was carried out in Osun State, Nigeria, and the primary data was used with the aim of structured questionnaire. The multi-stage sampling procedure was used. Firstly, the state was selected, then 2 local governments were selected, and the farmers. Then the result was analyzed using the statistics and regression results. Step 1 shows the distribution of respondents according to the IPM practices used. From the table, we can see that most of the respondents use the chemical method, which is ranked first. While combination of chemical and cultural method were used as the second method. This shows. Then again, table 2, those factors influence the adoption of IPM practice. What are those factors that influence or that inform usage of IPM practices. Here, we can see from the table that factors such as access to credit, access to essential training, awareness of IPM, and access to IPM were significantly and positively influenced the choice or the adoption of IPM practices. This shows that with access to essential training, this shows that capacity building and information on IPM will aid the adoption of IPM practices. While awareness of IPM, the knowledge of IPM, the practice, the method, and the usage aids adoption of IPM practices in the area.
To examine the demographic information of the respondents, ascertain the respondents' cocoa production practices, and identify IPM adoption level of the families. The materials and method, both qualitative and quantitative data were collected from 68 cocoa farmers. We structured a well-structured questionnaire at Atakumasa East and Ife East local government. Descriptive statistics was used for data presentation, while chi-square was used to test the hypothesis. The table shows the characteristics of the respondents in the study area, and we have those. The age of the farmers in that location ranges most between age 41 and 60. Old farmers like Mrs. What's her name said this morning, so they're already expiring. So for the distribution of the respondents based on pest control measures, most of the farmers in that location still use chemical most times. For the IPM adoption by the respondents, they were trained by an ADP representative, and this was the outcome from their training. Those that were trained within the period of 1 to 2 years, 3 to 4 years, we have their frequencies as represented here, and we can see that those that were trained within the period of 3 to 4 were the early adopters. The text square shows significance of educational level and primary occupation at 16.175 and 23.693. It shows that educational level in that location is significant to the adoption. Discussion and conclusion. The high reliance on chemical pesticides and low adoption rates of biological and cultural control methods suggest that farmers may not be aware of the benefits of IPM practices or may face barriers to adoption.
I'm making the presentation on behalf of the other authors as shown above. And the title of our project is Comparative Analysis of Integrated Pest Management System and Agrochemical Use in Cocoa Production in Southwest Nigeria. Aims and objectives. The broad objective, like is stated above, to compare the productivity of cocoa production using IPM and agrochemicals. And the specific qualities are to describe the socio-economic characteristics, evaluate the productivity of cocoa farmers using agrochemical and IPM, factors influencing the use of IPM and agrochemicals, and to compare the profitability of IPM and agrochemical users in cocoa production. Materials and method. The study was carried out in 2 states, Ogun State and Oyo State. Multi-state sampling technique was used to select respondents in the study area, moving from Ogun to the local government and selected communities. And descriptive statistics was used to describe the socio-economic characteristics. Total factor productivity was used to determine the productivity level of the farmers. And monetary analysis was used to estimate the cost of production and revenue generated from using IPM and agrochemicals. The formula is as shown above. Table 1 shows the socio-economic characteristics of cocoa farmers using agrochemical and IPM. We found out that for those farmers that use IPM and agrochemicals, their average age is around 50 years. So these farmers are still in their productive year, they are middle-aged farmers, so they can still do more, they have more time to still produce, they have more time to adopt new technologies. And the educational level, we find out that 5.3% of IPM users have no formal education. 18.9% have no formal education for agrochemical users. So these farmers are relatively educated. They are educated and they are able to adopt. They are able to accept innovations, new innovations. They are easily, essential agents can easily access them and train them. The results above shows the results of total productivity for the IPM users and the agrochemical users. And we found out that the IPM users has a higher productivity. It means that 14.8% of their inputs are used for production to get their outputs, which is lesser. It's more lesser for agrochemical users. Other factors may be responsible, but we are thinking that the high level of reliance on chemicals by agrochemicals could be a reason for this.
Is an hybrid plot that contains 23 of our hybrids replicated in 6 blocks and is of 10 super stands, and you can call it a germplasm of our materials, and the need to sustain this plot is as a result of a fire outbreak that happened on that plot, that occurred on that plot. So as a result of that, we need to sustain the plot, because among the 23 hybrids we have the TC series, the TC we want to hit. So presently the plot is not in a good shape. We just have few of those materials left over on that plot. So the essence of this work is to sustain that plot. The objective of this work is to resuscitate the hybrid fire plots using cloning method, the grafting method, and thereby addressing the pressing need of cocoa farmers for sustainable production practices. And the materials and method, Boardwood were collected from the remaining 2 stands on those materials, and the boardwood collected were grafted on already established stock at the nursery. And presently, we were able to raise a total number of 2,000 cocoa seedling as root stock. And the work is still ongoing. Presently, we have the exercise that is ongoing now. They have grafted some of those materials, and the grafting exercise is still ongoing. And after the grafting, we'll take the materials to the field and establish them, so that we can address the issue of the demand for planting materials by cocoa farmers. Thank you. Now I want to be presenting on expansion of parental clonal gardening, a source of planting materials for Nigerian cocoa farmers. As we all know, the global demand for cocoa is on the high side as a result of increase in consumption of chocolate, and CRIN has been facing a lot of challenges when it comes to supply of planting materials to Nigerian cocoa farmers. So as a result of that, this project was designed so that we can establish 1 hectare of parental clonal gardening to address the pressing demand of cocoa farmers in Nigeria. Now, vegetative materials were collected from parental materials, and these bottles were grafted on root stocks in the nursery, and we have from success. These are the successive grafts now, and we raised over 3,000 cocoa seedlings. And out of that 3,000 cocoa, we were able to select 1,760 seedlings that were valuable, that can be planted upon. So, and out of that 1,760 seedlings, we recorded a success of 50%. So we were able to achieve 798 grafted success. And this material has been transplanted in the field. This is the field. This is the picture of the field. This is the picture of the field. And the field is towards the Austria. You can visit the place and see. The work is still ongoing because we are still making efforts so that we can fill up the 1 hectare. Presently we have less than we established 798, but due to environmental effects, we lost some of those materials, and we want to wrap up so that we can have the exact number of planting materials on that plot.
Cocoa flavor diversity and the effects of soil fertility on cocoa bean aroma quality. As we are all aware, cocoa is being propagated or consumed by the reason of its flavor. The flavor is the primary thing that consumers enjoy mostly from the produce and its byproducts. As such, we have different flavor and taste that consumers so much desire in cocoa. As a result of this, scientists we have worked and discovered that we have divergence varieties of flavor in cocoa depending on the geographical location as well as the genetics of that cocoa. So the aim of this particular research is to assess the relationship between the soil properties and cocoa flavor profile across multiple Nigerian cocoa farms. And what is this going to bring for us? The consumers of cocoa and chocolates at the global level, they have high taste for high flavored cocoa. And there is the need for us in Nigeria to discover where can we get a specific type of flavor. That is, we want to do Nigerian cocoa flavor map so that we can say in Cross River, this is the flavor that is dominant there. In Ondo State, this is the flavor that is dominant there. In Osun State, etc., etc. At the same time, we know that the flavor attributes or traits in a particular cocoa sample is a combination of the genetics of that cocoa plant that was planted there, as well as the post-harvest handling in terms of processing, fermentation, and the like. So those two things play a major role to determine the flavor property of a sample. As a result, we want to eliminate the aspect of processing by collecting raw cocoa pods from farmers and process it ourselves. So we have eliminated the processing variation. Now the rest is now left for the genetics. So we want to collect cocoa from different parts of the country in the cocoa producing state and collect soil sample from each of those farms where we collect pod, process the bean ourselves, and then at the end of the day we'll be able to correlate and see the relationship between the flavor provided and then the soil fertility in that particular location.
Of new cocoa cultivars among farmers in Osun State. What prompted this topic was on the release of the research topic for last year, looking at development of new varieties of cocoa, and I asked myself, what happens to the already distributed varieties? To what extent have farmers adopted it? And that was what led to this. The objectives were, so the primary objective of this study is to assess the adoption of CRIN series, examine the socio-economic characteristics of the farmers in the study area, describe the cocoa enterprise characteristics, determine the adoption rate of the CRIN series, identify constraints to the adoption of new cocoa cultivar in the study. The materials are made. A multi-stage sampling procedure was employed, and the first stage was a purposive selection of Atakumosa East, Ede South, Ife Central, Ife East, Ife North, Ife South, and Ilesha East. The second stage involved a stratified sampling of cocoa farming communities into two groups, the adopters and the non-adopters of the new cocoa tissue culture. The last stage was a proportionate sample of 104 cocoa farmers from this strata, comprising 32 adopters and 72 non-adopters. That is a shock. Of the TC series that has been distributed, we have on the table accordingly to their level of adoption in the study area. We can see the highest we have there was TC1. That's for 20 farmers have been able to adopt that. The recommended practices that comes along with the variety distributed, they were practiced by just few farmers. The highest of them were the 21 that we have on the table. And for the adoption category, we have the low adoption of 72 and high adoption of 32. That is inclusive of the recommended practices. The willingness to adopt CRIN new cultivar, that is the one we are looking into to develop now. Almost all the people, all the farmers in the study area were willing to adopt the new cultivar.
Objectives of the work was to establish Zion Garden of the identified Nigerian potential cashew mother trees. Last year we worked with GIZ, Pro Cashew, to gather some good varieties of cashew that we can work on. Farmers allied varieties. We also got some materials from Ghana, from Cote d'Ivoire and the rest. So we have so many materials that we gather from the field, which we now want to establish as Zion Garden in the Institute. So the other objective is to provide continuous source of grants or clones of these materials. Some of these materials were identified on the farmers' field. And we discovered that because farmers do not know the genetic potential of what they have, some of them were cutting the trees. Like my director said, that we have some good cocoa materials at Ileoluji, but we discovered that people wanted to build house. They started cutting the trees. So in order to preserve our genetic potential and make them usable again to get new variety, we need to go and collect them from the farmers' field and secure them in our institute. So this is one of the reasons. So that another reason is also to provide research materials for developing and releasing new cashew cultivars. So that is what we do in breeding. You know, there are some trees, you will see that they are resistant to disease. Some trees, they are always infested, but they have very big apple, big nuts. So what we do is to look at the differences and see how we can combine the good attributes in one. So that's why those are the kind of research activity we do on them. Then it is also to make improved planting materials available to farmers in the country. By the time we finish our research work, we'll be able to release new variety for farmers that will combine all the good attributes in new varieties.
Àyẹ̀wò fún àwọn oríṣiríṣi igi cashew àti àwọn àrùn tí ó kojú wọn. Ó jẹ́ iṣẹ́ tí the whole of pathology group àwọn yẹn ni ó ṣe àyẹ̀wò àwọn kòkòrò àìfojúrí èyí tó ń kọlù cashew ní orí oko wa. So àkọ́kọ́ ni pé kí ni àwọn àrùn tí ó ti wọ ara àwọn ọmọ cashew báyìí tó jẹ́ tuntun tí àwọn àgbẹ̀ àti àwọn extension officer ọmọ afẹ́fẹ́ wọn létí. Èkejì, a fẹ́ wo kí ni àwọn ọ̀nà tí a lè gbà. Bàbá sọ̀rọ̀ nípa IPM lẹ́ẹ̀kan pé kí ni àwọn kan tí a tún lè fi kún ohun tí a pè ní IPM èyí tó jẹ́ oríṣiríṣi ọ̀nà tí ò gbọ̀nà kan tá a lè fi kojú àwọn àrùn tí ohun kọlù cashew. Ìyẹn jẹ́ ìdí tá a fi ṣe àyẹ̀wò yìí. Iṣẹ́ yìí a ṣe láti oṣù kejìlá ọdún 2024 wọ oṣù kẹta 2025. Àwọn oríṣiríṣi cashew the Brazilian type, àwọn èyí tó wá láti ìlú Brazil àtàwọn tó wá láti ìlú India. Àwọn ṣàyẹ̀wò pé èwo nínú wọn ló lágbára jù láti gbàyà èwo nínú wọn ló lágbára jù láti fojú kọ àrùn èyí tí ó kọlù kaṣú. So a gba àwọn ẹ̀yà ara kaṣú àti ewé ni o àti kóró ni o àti iye olómi tá a mú a gba àwọn ẹ̀yà yẹn àwa kó lọ sí làábù. Nínú làábù àwa ṣe àyẹ̀wò ẹ̀ èwo ni àwọn kòkòrò tí a lè fojú rí èyí tí a lè rí nínú àwọn ènìyàn. So a kó ìfarajọwé àwọn àrùn yẹn nípa bí wọ́n ṣe rí àti ọ̀nà tí wọ́n gbà wọ ibẹ̀. Ní àkótán àwọn oríṣiríṣi ara kaṣú tá a gbà nìyí: igi kaṣú, ewé kaṣú, fúláwà kaṣú, èyí olómi tá a mú náà a gbà á. Àwa gbogbo ẹ̀ lọ ṣàyẹ̀wò ní láàbù. Ẹ wo àwọn orúkọ oríṣiríṣi yìí, gbogbo àwọn àrùn yẹn èyí tá a mọ̀ tó ń kọlù kaṣú. Ní àwa ṣàkíyèsí pé kò wá sí ara kajú kan tá a lè rí àrùn kan tàbí míì, ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n rárá gbàyà ju ara wọn lọ.
Lórí ó ní nípa bó ti yẹ ká máa gbin kaṣú wá sí. A mọ̀ pé kaṣú ó jẹ́ igi ńlá, ó dẹ̀ máa ń fẹ̀wọ́. Ṣé rí kaṣú tẹ bá gbìn? Tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá ká lọ́wọ́ kò yóò máa fẹ̀wọ́ lọ ni. Àwọn wò ó pé báwo ló ti yẹ kí kaṣú wa ó jìnnà síra wọn sí lórí oko. Oríṣiríṣi àríyànjiyàn ló máa ń wáyé, ṣùgbọ́n a rí pé àwa tá a pera wa ní ọ̀mọ̀wé àkàn kì í sọ̀rọ̀ láì rí àrídánilójú, torí ẹ̀ la fi ń ṣèwádìí. So nǹkan tá a ṣe ni pé a gbin oríṣi kaṣú méjì. You can go ahead and speak into it. A gbin oríṣi kaṣú méjì. Mo sọ fún wa objective tí mo sọ nìyẹn pé a fẹ́ mọ̀ a fẹ́ máa jiyàn mọ́. Nípa nínú oríṣi kaṣú méjì a máa ń sábà fún àwọn àgbẹ̀. A pè kan ní jumbo, a pè kan ní medium. Torí a ti ṣèwádìí pé àwọn méjèèjì yẹn wọ́n dáa fágbẹ̀ láti gbìn. Ó dáa tí n bá gbin jumbo, tí n bá gbin medium, ṣé bákan náà ló ti yẹ kí wọ́n jìnnà síra wọn sí lórí oko? Níta fẹ́ mú jáde nìyẹn. So ayẹyẹ iṣẹ́ yìí a ṣe ní ọ̀dọ̀ àgbẹ̀ kan ní Ogun State ní Ọbáfẹ́mi Owódé local government wò láti ṣe. A gbin kaṣú wa ní ọ̀nà mẹ́rin tí wọ́n ti jìnnà síra wọn sí. A lò 6 by 6 meters square tó ń fún wa ní 277 cashew stand nínú sáré oko méjì àtààbọ̀ táwọn olóyìnbó ń pè ní hectare kan. A gbin another one tá a gbìn ní 8 meter by 8 meter. Àgbẹ̀ máa rí 156 plants ní orí oko sáré kan tí í ṣe éka méjì àtààbọ̀. Ẹ̀kẹta oní 10 meter by 10 meter. Ìkẹrin oní 12 meter by 12 meter. Ṣé 12 meter by 12 meter yẹn? Ìwọ̀nba tí àgbẹ̀ máa rí lóko rẹ̀ kò ju 69 stands lọ. Then oríṣi kaṣú méjì ni wọ́n láàgbìn, jumbo àti medium. Àwọn ìwádìí tá a wá ṣe àwò lọ́gbà ẹ̀ go to result. Àwò pé kí ni báwo ni wọ́n ti dàgbà sí pẹ̀lú oríṣi kaṣú méjì tá a gbìn pẹ̀lú jíjìnà síra wọn tó jẹ́ oríṣi mẹ́rin. Níta kọ́kọ́ wò ní gíga. Torí gẹ́gẹ́ bí ènìyàn náà ni ṣe rí àwọn pláǹtì wa abẹ̀mí ni wọ́n nù. Tàbá tí a bá ní ọmọ, wọ́n á sọ pé ká gbé lọ sí hospital. Báwo ló ti wọ̀n tó? Báwo ló ti ga tó? Àwọn nǹkan tá a máa ń ṣe. Báwo dókítà ènìyàn ti máa ń ṣe fún ènìyàn? Báwa náà ni àwa dókítà ewéko bá ti máa ń ṣe fún àwọn pláǹtì wa nìyẹn. Wọ́n bá wa sọ̀rọ̀ àdè máa ń gbọ́ èdè ara wa.
Methodology we adopted a multi-stage approach which took us from the local, the state, the local government and the communities. We chose purposively, we chose Udenu and Isuka local governments and we went down to the communities which are Afo, Ezimo, Imileke, from Udenu local government area and Obupa, Edioa, Obala and Legia from Suka local government area. So a total of 120 cashew farmers were randomly selected. Now the analytical tools we used was one of them was descriptive analysis and 4 functional forms. Some of us that are in agri-economics and social sciences, so we know that before you come out with a result, you need to test them. So at the end of the day, we went to choose a linear functional form and exponential functional form. At the end, the results showed, we had the summary of the results, and at the end of the day, we find out that some of the attributes that the farmers are interested in are the jumbo size, the dwarf size cashew plants, the non-farming, the cashew plant that will not abort the flowers, high quality, not weight. At the end of the day, we saw that a little percentage of the respondents they decided to choose medium-sized nuts. So the result, the yield, we used the yield and the revenue, and then from the functional forms, the linear functional form was used to achieve the best of fit for the yield, while the exponential form was used to assess the best of fit for the revenue.
From where I came from the Department of Crop Improvement, and when you check our team, you see that we are working towards varietal development. And in working towards varietal development, it requires that we bring together different genetic materials. And for those different genetic materials, there are many things that we have to consider about each of them. And for those genetic material, the aspect of the work that I'm presenting now focus on enhancing cashew cultivar development through pollen viability and in vitro germination. So in order for us to have a good fertilization success when it comes to hybridization program, because we at the end of the day, after gathering those material, we have to hybridize the male and female. We have to cross them together to get what we are looking for. But there is one major important factor, which is the pollen. That pollen is a great determinant whether there will be a successful hybridization or not, or the extent at which we have successful hybridization. And that was what brought about the study. So the aim of the study is to assess the pollen viability and germination using the annealing method, and also we use protocols in the laboratory. And the materials and method, the research was carried out at the Cocoa Research Institute of Nigeria, and 18 cashew clonal materials they were used, and pollens were collected and they were preserved. So for this experiment, we make use of 2 media. We use sucrose, boric acid, potassium nitrate, and magnesium nitrate. And we also make use of another media where we were able to vary what the content. And the result of the experiment showed that for the 18 clonal accession that we used, EN103, CR102, EU202, BEL 22, and YS103, for the first one, they perform better and they give us some assurance that when it comes to pollen transfer, they have superior pollen character. And when we proceed to the second stage, we realize that there are some of them that perform better at the first experiment, but at the second experiment, their performance is less. So we cannot use the first result to recommend that these are the ones that perform better. So the second experiment from it, we realize that YS103, EU202, and CR102, they have a consistent performance when it comes to superior pollen donor.
Phytophagous insect-pest complex of cashew germplasm and plantations in Nigeria. The objectives of the study were to monitor the insect pest occurrence and diversity in cashew germplasm and plantations in Ogbomoso, Nigeria, to determine the threshold of the insect pest monitored, to monitor the natural enemies of the insect pest recorded, and to develop an eco-friendly management method. The experiment was carried out here on the CRIN experimental plots and the farmer's farm in Ogumosho. It was laid out in a randomized complete block design, and data collections was on the insect pest, which was carried out visually, showing the infestation signs, the damage symptoms on 30 randomly tagged cashew trees. All insect pests, both the pest and the non-pest, collected were kept in cleaner jars containing absorbent cotton wool, already soaked in with ethyl acetate, and were taken to the insect museum in entomology for proper identification. These are some of the insect pests recorded, which shows Pseudoteraptus devastans, and the natural enemy was seen, Oncophala nodinoda. The pollinators noticed were the butterflies and the apis mellifera, the honeybee. Discussion and conclusion. Different insect pest species were encountered during the period of survey, and they included the pollinators, the defoliators, the fruit and apple sucking pests, ants and termites.
We can use it in other forms. And in which form can we use this? We can use it in form of voucher. Voucher is a viable alternative. We know voucher will convert this litter to organic materials which are beneficial. So this work now is focused on quantifying the amount of leaf litter produced in cashew plantation, then producing cashew leaf litter voucher from the leaf litter as an alternative to burning, which is very destructive. Here we also want to use two different methods, the pits and the co-pot method, to find out which of the two methods is very efficient so we can recommend to our farmers. Now, this experiment, how was it carried out? It was carried out in two locations, one in Ochaja and one in Ibadan. In each of the locations, two farms were used. Cashew farms of different ages were used. So a litter sample was collected. Each of the plantations was blocked. In each plantation, there were 4 blocks. And litter was collected from 20 meters by 20 meters in each block. And this litter was collected, soil samples were collected, and leaf samples were collected. Now this litter was used to prepare voucher using two different methods. Prepare voucher using the pot method, using the pit method, and also ashing. Because we included ashing so that we will see the farmers see the detrimental effect of ashing. Data was collected. This litter that were collected were processed using this method, and the result was as follows. We found out that on Chaja, the litter collected in each location varied. In Ibadan, we saw the litter quantity was highest in Ibadan than on Chaja. We expect that because of the rainfall situation. Then looking at the different methods, we found out that using the coal and the pit method gave us voucher. Open burning, as we know, it gave us ashes, which is lost. It loses a lot of nutrients like nitrogen, and is lost as a result of erosion. So we found out that even when we are looking at the quantity, we find that coal, pot, and pit method gave us better method. But looking at the two methods now, we can even see that the pit method gave us higher voucher yield. What do we mean voucher yield? If we put in 100 kg of litter and we prepare voucher from it, what happened?
Farmers' perspective and felt need in development of cashew variety in Edo State, Nigeria. Objective: to examine the selected socio-economic characteristics of the respondent, ascertain the preference of respondents on the characteristics of developed cashew cultivars. Third, to ascertain the source of information of cashew varieties by the respondents, and also to examine the awareness of respondents on the development of cashew cultivars. Last, to determine the felt need of the respondents in cashew cultivation. material methods. Multi-stage sampling procedure was used to select O1 East and O1 West. Purposive sampling technique was used in selection of 2 communities in the local government area. Random sampling technique was also used to select 17 cashew farmers from each of the communities, giving a total of 68 cashew farmers. Data were collected by structural questionnaire and analyzed by descriptive statistics. Chi-sphere was used to test for the hypothesis. Hypothesis said there is no significant relationship between the socioeconomic characteristics of and the fed needs of respondents. The results show that male were 44 male were higher than the female, and the age bracket between 41 to 50 were the highest age grade. And in education, it was recorded that most of them were graduates and married. Most of them were also married. In conclusion, you can see that the majority of the farmers were married. There was also a high demand of high yield by cashew farmers. There was also high awareness of cashew cultivar development among farmers, and a high proportion of respondents identified pest management as a major challenge.
Not well-type classification and again ecological reliability of seedlings from Elite cashew genotype. Why this study? The justification for this study is to generate vital information from progeny evaluation of Elite cashew genotypes at the nursery stage, which could support nursery and field trials involved in the ongoing development of the new cashew varieties at the institute, and also guide breeding ideas. The objective of this study is to classify the nuts from the Elite cashew genotypes into their respective biotypes, and 2, to determine the seeding emergence, growth pattern, and root development of the seeding rate from the selected Elite cashew genotype nuts. So, for materials and method, the experiment was established in the institute, and for the nuts classification, 25 nuts genotypes were randomly selected, and we were using an electronic scale, and using this formula. So the classification was done based on Adekwe 2015, and for the experimental design, the nursery was the CRIN design, and the genotypes which are the treatments are stated in the slide below. So data on seeding emergence, morphological data collection, destructive samplings, and statistical analysis was also done. So results, table 1 shows the classification of the Elite genotypes not each biotype, and from the results we were able to observe that Ecotel T2, BJ36 and Ecopoped T1 all had large not biotype. They all belong to the not large biotype classification. Then table 2 shows the percentage seeding emergence at 2, 3 and 4 weeks after sowing. And looking at the table, we can see that BJ36 had 80% emergence at 2 weeks after planting, while it reached maximum emergence at 3 weeks after sowing. And why is this important? One of the traits we also look into whenever we are considering our nuts or genotype is how early they can emerge. Because when your nut stays too long to germinate, it might likely rot and might not germinate. So for BJ, having 80% seeding emergence at 2 weeks shows that it's a good genotype. Then typically shows the cashew seeding growth parameters at 4 weeks after sowing. And BJ36 again had the highest plant height of all the genotypes, then also had the highest number of leaves. But looking at the stem diameter too, COP4 had the highest, but not significantly different from that of the BJ36. And looking at the leaf area to the done, difference observed among them.
The specific objectives of this study are: 1, to identify various farming systems adopted by farmers in the study area, to calculate and compare the profitability indicators of farming system by cashew farmers in the study area, and lastly, to identify the key factors influencing the choice of farming systems adopted. So the study makes use of a multi-stage sampling procedure of which the final stage, 3 local governments were selected. That is Orire local government, Ogoluwa, and Ogomosho North local government. So materials and methods that were used, the methods that were used for this study, for the first object, we made use of discrete analysis, gross margin analysis, as well as multinomial logistic regression. That's for the final objective. So I will just go through to the key parts of the findings. So majorly what we found out is that we made use of questionnaires as well as interviews. Majority of the farmers were actually adopted what we call mixed farming system. That is the rearing of animals as well as this. So eventually what we saw, majority of them adopted mixed farming, but they complained that they incurred higher costs than their counterparts who focused on just intercropping. So after carrying out the cost and returns analysis, we discovered that they were right. They incurred higher costs, but at the end of the day, their returns was actually higher than those of their than the other counterparts. That is the people that adopted monocropping and intercropping. So also we discovered that the key factors that influence their decision are: number one, we have age of the farmers. Majority of the farmers, the older farmers, are not willing to adopt a new system. The system, they will rather stick to what they know rather than adopt a new system. But also we have marital status. Marital status also is significant in that majority of the married people prefer to rear animals alongside crop production. This is because sometimes, with rainy season, crop production majorly is dependent on weather condition. So they have something to fall back on when the weather doesn't favor them. So the animals are there for them to fall back on for income. So I'll move to the conclusion and recommendation. So for the conclusion, findings indicate that farmers practicing mixed farming achieve higher profitability, which I've explained. Also, the results highlight the key factors which are also listed. So the conclusion basically says that farmers should integrate livestock farming as well as intercropping, because they will have something else to fall back on. And generally we discovered that the farmers that adopt mixed farming had higher profitability.
This work is titled Modern Robusta Coffee Plantation Establishment and its impact on economic empowerment of farmers in Ogun State. Àwọn tá a ṣèwádìí yẹn náà la kọ sí orí ògiri yẹn. It is not news that most of our coffee farmers have abandoned coffee production, and there is a need for us to sensitize them and encourage them to go back to coffee cultivation. Gbogbo alagbọn nǹkan tí Madam Blessing sọ lẹ́nu. So if that is even an additional reason why our farmers must go back to coffee cultivation. Bá a ti ń rí forest gain ẹni lórí kòkó, là ń rí lórí cashew, là ń rí lórí coffee. Torí náà mo rọ̀ wá, àwa tá a ti pa ọ̀gbìn coffee tì, ẹ jẹ́ ká padà síbẹ̀ lọ́kùnkùn dúdú. So ìrètí tá a fi ṣe ìwádìí nìyẹn. A lọ sí Ogun State for farmers to demonstrate to them how they can go back into coffee cultivation. The objective is to sustain the renewed enthusiasm on our return to coffee cultivation in Ogun State, and also to assess the on-farm growth performance of 3 materials of coffee that were planted. It was an on-farm work. It was done along with the farmers. So it was researcher farmers managed plots at Àgbẹ̀ àjọ ṣe ìwádìí. So we chose the farmer among the coffee farmers group, and that is the plot of that's the size of the plot. We did all the necessary pre-cropping soil testing And we planted 3 coffee materials. 2 of them are clonal materials, while the 3rd one was seedling. The clonal materials are stated on the board. We did all necessary cultural operations that needed to be done, and data or morphological parameters were taken and they were analyzed accordingly. The results. The first table tells about the percentage of survival of the materials planted, and we could see from that place that the seedling had the highest survival count. It could be explained, it is hardy than the clonal material.
Of coffee production and its determinants in Nigeria. The objective of the study, study projects are to we examine the profitability of coffee production and we look at the factors that influence the profitability of coffee production in the study area. For the study area, the study was carried out in Kogi and Ekiti states. The analytical techniques we used descriptive statistics to describe socio-economic characteristics, and also we used budgetary analysis to determine if coffee production was profitable in the study area. And we looked at the determinants. We used multiple regression analysis to determine the factors influencing productivity of coffee in the study area. And the multiple regression is shown above the model for the multiple regression. The table 1 shows the socio-economic characteristics of coffee farmers in Kogi State, in the study area, Kogi and Ekiti State. The mean age is 51 years. The farmers in this study area are middle age. They still have more strength to do their work and to be able to adopt new innovations. And most of them were married, they were mostly male, and 80% of them had a level of education, either primary, secondary, or tertiary. And the mean of the farm size was 1.2 hectares. So most of the farmers in this study area are smallholder farmers. And we found out that the mean age of coffee farm is 14 years. The farming experience 22 years. And most of the farmers did coffee with arable cropping. The 3% of them did coffee with arable cropping, not so coffee. They planted coffee with other arable crops. For the cost and return analysis, we found out that the gross revenue per farmer in the study area in the last season was 3,533 naira. The total variable cost, which is the cost spent on inputs and other variable inputs, was 18,966, and the gross margin per farmer, the returns that farmer got on coffee production in the study area was 24,566, and the percentage was 17.7%. So most farmers in the study area, coffee farmers, are a little bit profitable. And some other factors can attribute to this are low profitability. Like Mr. Henry said, most of them are already cutting down their coffee production. They are taking their focus on coffee.
Agreement with my team that investigates this particular topic, increase collection of genetic material for varietal and economic development. Particular topic fit into the varietal development team of coffee program. The aims and objective. We all know that coffee has narrow genetic base. In spite of narrow genetic base of coffee, we know that rate of genetic erosion within the institute is very alarming. This is view of some activities that happened in the last decade. We have indiscriminate bush burning that enter the germplasm sometimes. We have indiscriminate felling of trees that kill most of the genetic materials, and the genetic material in the germplasm, one way or the other, have grown over the years. We now look into the genetic assessment of what we have on ground. And we have the second aim. The second objective is that any result obtained from the first research outlook, then we are going to take a look into it to produce solution to the problem reported in the first one. The objective and the aims. Let's move. Now, when you look at the plan material and data collection, we look at it from 1968 to 1990, and we see how we have utilized the genetic material we have there by SS Omolaja, and when he did his characterization work, and some other scientists, Dr. Ode and Dr. Mrs. Adepoju. It contains 54 clones across 6 species and 1 interspecific stand. We go into the survival canteen of the coffee to know the essence of what we have on the ground. The second outlook to the work, we make use of vegetative propagation, and one of the methods of vegetative propagation that we make use of is the cuttings. There is an established protocol for cuttings in the institute. We follow it right from number 1, cutting of the autotropic shoot, cutting and deep inside fungicide. The leaves, we reduce it to reduce evapotranspiration, and in all, we raise 150 cuttings.
The topic before me is enhancement of market access and sustainable livelihood for smallholder farmers in Nigeria. Actually, the key words there are market access and sustainable livelihood. As a matter of fact, without market access for the farmers, there can't be a sustainable livelihood. And without market, there can't be business. Now, the past presenters have been talking about farmers cutting down their coffee stand. And I think the major reason has to do with the lack of market access. Because the more you have market, the more money in your pocket as a farmer. And without money, your livelihood cannot be sustained. So that is just the preamble. Well, we have a problem statement there. Then the objective of the study mainly seeks to promote sustainable coffee production and enhance market participation of smallholder coffee farmers. And specifically, we want to look at identifying the factors influencing access to market and enhance the marketing channels. Secondly, provide market information and link coffee farmers to wider market, such as the international market. We also have enhanced effective market demand and identify factors that can boost it. We also have identifying constraints facing production and marketing, as well as impact of factors affecting the market. The study was actually carried out in Ekiti State and Kogi State. We have the Ekiti East and Kababonu local government areas. The data was collected, we actually analyzed using differential statistics, the Spearman correlation analysis, as well as descriptive statistical tool. Now, from the results, we discovered most of the farmers are male farmers, and majority of them are as well as being educated. Now, when we talk about farmers' constraint and accessibility to market, we discover that most of the farmers actually has no influence on the kind of price that is being given them. So they don't have they have no influence on the kind of market, so they take whatever is being given to them, and that is one of the major constraints. We also discovered that most of them do have access to international market. Now, impact of socio-economic factors affecting marketing on profitability, we discovered that the household size, the age of the farmers, as well as the revenue are important factors when it comes to them having access to market.
We can see that the mean age of the farmer is 51 years, which shows that the farmers are relatively old, though not too old, but at least when we look at the age, the less than 30 years, we can see that they are just starting 0.7%, which shows that most of the farmers there, they are not youth. Then the farming experience, the mean farming experience is 22 years. This maybe this will take up from the age of the farmers. If we look at it, the fact that the older the age, the older the age of the farmers, then the higher the years of experience. So many farmers there, they have high years of experience. Then the age of public farms, when we look at the less than 5 years, we can see that only 5.48% of farmers farm fell within that particular age of farm, which shows that for the past 5 years, only few farmers planted new coffee, established new coffee farms. Then when we look at the age greater than 10 years, then we can see that 69.86 of the farms, which shows that the farm that have been established long years ago, that is the one they are still maintaining. Then the coffee farm size, this one was expressed in acre, less than 1 acre, about 32.88%. Then 1.1 to 5.0 acres, that is 57.5 1 hectare is 2.5 acres, which shows that majority of the farmers, they have less than 2 hectares of farm. The farm size is so small. Then second, this particular table and second objective, that is the exotic problem confronting coffee production. And if you look at it, we see that unavailability of funds to do farm work, that one ranked first, as well as the poor price of coffee.